The darkness of space stretched endlessly, silent and cold. Commander Alara Stone floated alone in the cockpit of a broken ship, its lights flickering weakly like the heartbeat of a dying creature. Every system was failing. Oxygen was low, power almost gone, and the signal from Earth had been silent for weeks. Yet she kept sending messages, one after another, hoping someone somewhere might still be listening. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the transmit button again. "This is Commander Alara Stone of the Terran Fleet. If anyone receives this, please respond," only static answered her. The sound of her own breathing filled the cabin, slow and heavy beneath the hum of dying engines. She leaned back against her chair, eyes red and tired, staring at the stars outside. So many stars, and not a single friendly face among them. She could have given up days ago. But something inside her refused to die. It wasn't duty anymore, it was something deeper. Something human outside the cracked window. The shadow of the ruined space station hung like a ghost. Its twisted metal arms drifted slowly, the remains of the battle that had ended everything. Hundreds of ships had burned here. The Xyrath Empire had swept through the system like a storm, destroying every human outpost they found. And Alara, she was the last one left. A small red light blinked on her console. She frowned. "Incoming signal?" she whispered, sitting up straight. The screen filled with alien symbols, sharp, geometric, cold. The translation system struggled to decode it. Then a voice came through, calm and emotionless. "Unknown transmission detected. Identify yourself." Alara froze. The voice wasn't human. She had heard it before on the battlefield, when the Xyrath ordered her fleet to surrender. The aliens had come back. She took a slow breath. "This is Commander Stone," she replied, her voice steady though her heart pounded. "Last survivor of the human colony?" There was silence. Then the voice answered, "Human presence is not possible. All human forces were eliminated. State your purpose." Alara gave a small, tired laugh. "My purpose? To survive? Isn't that enough?" The screen went dark. She waited, tension crawling down her spine. Then a new sound filled the air, a low, distant hum, growing louder. She turned toward the window and saw them, dark shapes moving between the stars. Dozens of alien ships, sleek and silver, approaching like a swarm of metal predators. Ilara's mind raced. She could run, but her ship was too damaged. She could fight, but she had no weapons left. All she could do was face them. She opened the last remaining power cells and rerouted energy to the transmitter. "If I'm going down," she murmured, "they're going to remember me." Her fingers danced across the control panel, activating the ship's old recording system. She began speaking, her voice calm, filled with quiet strength. "To whoever hears this message, humanity is not gone. We are more than flesh and blood. We are will. We are fire. You can break our bodies, but you'll never break what we are." Transmitter glowed brightly, pulsing as her words spread into the void. Outside, the alien ships surrounded her, forming a cold ring of light. Their engines hummed in perfect rhythm, like machines built without emotion. A beam of white energy locked onto her ship. "Commander Stone," the alien voice spoke again. "Surrender your vessel. Resistance will result in termination." Alara smirked. "You already terminated everything I loved," she said softly. "There's nothing left to take." She stood up, steadying herself against the shaking floor. The lights dimmed again, the power draining fast. Her reflection appeared faintly in the cracked glass, her face pale. It's fierce. For a moment, she saw not a soldier, but a ghost of all humanity staring back. Then she did something unexpected. She cut the engines completely, letting the ship drift freely toward the nearest alien cruiser. The alien voice came again, sharper this time. "Warning. Alter your course immediately." But she didn't. She whispered to herself. "Let them come closer." She opened a small compartment on her armrest and pulled out a silver data drive, the last fragment of human knowledge, containing the entire history of Earth. Its art, music, science, and memories. She placed it in a slot connected to the transmitter. "This is what you'll never understand," she whispered. the soul of a species. Her ship shuddered as the alien beam hit its hull, pulling it in like a magnet. Metal groaned. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Elara held on, refusing to scream, as the ship was dragged into the alien carrier's hangar. She closed her eyes and whispered, "If this is the end, I'll make it count." The hatch burst open, filling the cabin with blinding light. Tall figures stepped inside, smooth metallic skin, eyes glowing faint blue. The Zyrith soldiers moved with mechanical precision, scanning everything. One of them pointed at her, speaking in their cold tongue. She stared back, unafraid. "You're curious, aren't you?" she said softly. "You want to know why we keep fighting?" They didn't answer. They didn't have to. Their silence said everything. One of them raised a strange device, surrounding her with a cage of light. She felt herself lifted from the floor, her body frozen in midair. As they carried her through the corridors of their massive ship, Elara looked around. Everything was perfect, clean, and lifeless. The walls pulsed with energy, but there was no warmth, no color, no sound except the hum of machines. Inside, she felt something stirring her. Yes, but also pity. These beings had conquered the stars, but lost their hearts. They didn't know what it meant to feel pain and still move forward. They didn't know what it meant to love something enough to die for it. She whispered, almost to herself, "You think I'm the last human, but you're wrong. As long as someone remembers us, we're never gone." A faint smile touched her lips as the aliens took her deeper into their ship. Behind them, her broken vessel drifted silently into darkness, its lights fading one by one. But deep inside, the transmitter was still glowing, still sending her message through the galaxy strong and clear, like a heartbeat refusing to stop, somewhere far away among distant stars. Her voice kept echoing, "This is Commander Elara Stone of the Terran Fleet. Humanity lives." Though no one answered yet, the universe had already heard. Elara woke up to the sound of a strange hum, soft, steady, and not from any human ship. Her eyes opened slowly, but bright white light burned her vision. The air smelled clean, too clean, almost artificial. For a moment she thought she was dead. Then she felt the cold surface beneath her and realized she was still alive, a prisoner. She tried to move.
Oh.
But a transparent field of energy surrounded her like invisible glass. Every time she pushed against it, her skin tingled with a sharp electric sting. Her ship was gone. Her uniform was torn. A small pulse monitor blinked on her wrist, reading her heartbeat. Someone was watching her. A voice spoke suddenly, echoing from the walls. "Human specimen is conscious. Begin observation." Elara looked around. The voice didn't come from a person. It came from everywhere, like the walls themselves were speaking. Then the walls shifted. The smooth metal surface melted away, turning into a window. Behind it stood 3 tall figures, the Zyrith. Their faces were long and pale silver, with no mouths, only glowing blue eyes that never blinked. Their bodies looked too perfect, too symmetrical, like something designed by a machine not born. They stared at her in silence. Finally, one of them spoke. Its voice was calm and empty. "You are not supposed to exist." Human civilization was erased. Lara stared right back. "Guess your data was wrong." They didn't react. They just kept observing her, scanning her vitals, her movements, her expression. It made her skin crawl. Another alien stepped closer to the window. "You continued transmitting distress signals after your system fell," it said. "You were aware no response would come. Explain." She smiled faintly, even though her lips were dry. "Because that's what humans do. We try. Even when there's no reason left." The aliens turned to one another, exchanging silent signals through flashes of blue light. One of them spoke again, slower this time. "Trying without reason is inefficient." Lara laughed quietly. "Maybe, but it's what kept us alive for centuries." For the first time, one of the aliens tilted its head, curious. That one was different from the others. Its eyes didn't glow as brightly, and there was something hesitant about its movements. Its name, she later learned, was Varen. Varen stepped forward. Your kind values persistence, he said softly, almost as if speaking to himself. Even in failure, Ilara nodded. You say it like it's a bad thing. Failure must be avoided. Another alien replied sharply. Emotion leads to error. Error leads to extinction. Ilara's tone hardened. Then maybe that's why you'll never understand us. We don't fear mistakes. We learn from them. The room went quiet. The aliens stared, their lights dimming slightly, a sign of confusion, maybe even discomfort. The walls shifted again. Now she could see a massive chamber beyond her cell, filled with machines, strange blue liquids, and other empty containment pods. She wasn't the first creature they had studied. The realization made her stomach twist. Are you going to kill me? She asked finally. One alien answered without emotion. Death is unnecessary. You will be preserved. Your responses will teach us why humanity resisted termination. She frowned. You mean, you're going to turn me into an experiment? Observation, the voice corrected coldly. Resistance is futile. Lara leaned back, crossing her arms. You've said that before. But somehow, we always prove you wrong. For a second, silence filled the chamber. Then one of the aliens ordered, begin phase 2. Measure endurance. The lights above her cage flared bright blue. Suddenly the floor disappeared beneath her, replaced by a black void. Gravity vanished. She felt herself floating weightless. Then a surge of energy struck her chest. Pain exploded through her body. She screamed, clutching her ribs. The voice spoke again, calm as ever. Observe. Subject refuses submission. Increase simulation intensity. Her surroundings changed again. Now she was standing in a burning battlefield, the air filled with smoke and fire. She could hear screams, explosions, and the roar of alien ships overhead. It felt real, the smell of burning metal, the heat on her skin. Her body trembled, but her mind knew it was a simulation. She whispered, You think this will break me? You have no idea what it means to be human. The fire roared louder. She fell to her knees, but she didn't cry. She pressed her hands into the hot dirt and forced herself to stand again. Behind the glass, Varen watched. His fellow scientists took notes, recording her pulse rate and brain patterns. But Varen wasn't looking at the data. He was watching her face, the pain, the defiance, the will. Something in him stirred, something he didn't have a name for. He asked quietly, Why does she rise again? One of the others replied, Because the simulation is imperfect. She cannot distinguish illusion from reality. But Varen didn't believe that. There was something else, a kind of strength that logic couldn't measure. He kept watching as she stumbled forward, breathing hard but never stopping. Ilara's voice echoed through the room. You can't simulate the human heart. Her words confused them even more. What was a heart beyond a muscle? What gave it power? The simulation ended abruptly. The flames vanished, and she dropped onto the cold metal floor of her real cell. Her body shook from exhaustion. Sweat covered her face, but her eyes were still burning with defiance. The voice returned. Human resilience, high. Emotional stability, unstable. Conclusion. Species driven by irrational persistence. Lara smiled weakly. You say that like it's an insult. Varen leaned closer to the window, staring at her with silent wonder. For the first time in his existence, he felt curiosity and maybe something close to respect. When the others left, he stayed a little longer, watching her sleep. The words she used echoed in his mind heart. He looked at his reflection in the metal wall and whispered in his own tongue. Maybe logic is not the only strength worth studying. And far away, in the empty silence of space, Ilara's last transmission still traveled, carrying her voice through the stars. A message that would soon change even the coldest hearts in the galaxy. Ilara woke to a chill crawling through her skin. The room was darker now, lit only by a faint blue glow from the walls. Her body felt heavy, sore from the last experiment. She sat up slowly, holding her ribs. Every muscle hurt, but her spirit was still burning quietly inside her chest. She remembered the fire, the battlefield, the illusion that had felt too real. They had tried to break her, but she hadn't given them the satisfaction. She smiled faintly. You'll have to do better than that, she whispered. The walls shimmered, and a calm voice filled the air. Subject has recovered. Proceed with the next test. Ilara clenched her fists. You can test all you want. I'm not giving you what you want. This time the voice didn't answer. The floor beneath her shifted, and the world dissolved again, the walls melting away like liquid light. She found herself standing on a vast gray plain under a blood-red sky. Wind screamed across the wasteland. In the distance, towers of smoke rose from burning cities. Her mind told her it wasn't real, but her body didn't believe it. The heat, the smell of ash, the sting of the wind, everything felt too real. She heard footsteps behind her. When she turned, she froze. It was her crew, the people she had lost during the last battle. Lieutenant Ray, Engineer Nira, Captain Holt. They were all there, standing still, watching her. Their faces were blank, their eyes empty. Commander Ray said in a flat, broken voice, "You left us to die." Her heart twisted. "No," she whispered. "That's not true. You failed us." Another voice said, Nira's. This time, "You promised we'd make it home." Ilara shook her head, backing away. "This isn't real. You're not real." But their voices grew louder, overlapping, accusing. "You led us into fire? You abandoned us. You survived when we didn't." Her knees hit the ground. She covered her ears, shouting, "Stop! You don't know what I went through." The sky darkened. Lightning split the clouds, thunder rolling across the dead world. And then silence. A calm, alien voice echoed around her. "Observe. The subject's emotions create resistance to guilt stimuli. Increase intensity." The ground beneath her cracked open. Flames rose around her again, and this time she was back in her ship the day it fell. She could see herself sitting at the controls, alarms blaring, her crew screaming in the background. The ship shook violently as enemy fire tore through the hull. She saw her own hands reaching for the escape pod button. She heard Holt shouting, "Don't do it. Stay with the ship." But she pressed it anyway. The door closed. The light flashed. The explosion followed. Tears streamed down her face. The aliens were forcing her to relive her worst moment, the one she had never forgiven herself for. Ilara fell to the floor, gasping for air. "You think you can torture me with my own memories?" she whispered. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." Behind the glass of the real chamber, Varen watched again. The other Zereth stood beside him, cold and still. "She continues to resist," one of them said. "It is illogical. Pain should force compliance." Varen's eyes glowed dimmer. "Maybe pain isn't the same for her as it is for us," he said quietly. The leader turned to him. "Explain." "She feels it," Varen said slowly, "but she doesn't obey it. Her emotions give her power instead of weakness." The others exchanged silent data bursts, analyzing his statement. "Emotions cannot create strength," one replied. "They are errors in control." Varen looked back at Ilara. She was crawling across the simulation field, dragging herself through the flames, reaching for something invisible. Her voice cracked but never broke. "No," Varen said softly. "They are not errors. They are choices." In the simulation, Ilara reached the ship's main console. She pressed her hand against it and whispered, "I didn't leave them behind. I carried them with me." That moment, the flames vanished. The sky cleared. She was standing again, alone, bruised but breathing. The test was over. Her pulse slowed. The energy cage disappeared, and the real room returned around her. She fell to her knees, shaking but alive. The voice spoke again. "Simulation terminated. Subject remains defiant. No signs of surrender." Lara looked up at the ceiling, sweat dripping from her chin. "That's right," she said between breaths. "Humans don't surrender." Varen's gaze lingered on her. There was something different in his expression now, not just curiosity, but a faint spark of emotion. Maybe wonder. Maybe admiration. When the other aliens left to analyze the data, Varen stayed. He stepped closer to her cell, lowering his voice. "Why do you keep fighting?" he asked. Ilara met his glowing eyes. "Because I have something you don't," she said softly. He tilted his head. "What is that?" "Hope. The word echoed through the chamber. Quiet, but powerful. Varen didn't answer. He turned and walked away, but the word followed him. Hope. It was not a word the Xyrath used. They didn't understand it. But now he wanted to. Inside her cell, Alara lay back against the wall. Her body hurt. Her mind was tired, but she smiled anyway. Because now she knew one of them had started to question. And that was the beginning of change. Outside, in the endless dark of space. Her signal still traveled, a lonely voice whispering across galaxies. It carried not just her words, but the essence of what she was fighting for. Humanity was not finished. It was only waiting to be remembered. Alara sat quietly in her cell, staring at the faint light pulsing through the walls. Hours had passed, or maybe days. Time meant nothing here. The Xyrath ship never changed. Same cold glow, same lifeless hum, same silence that pressed against her chest like a weight. She had stopped counting how long she'd been trapped. But she hadn't stopped thinking. Every night, when the lights dimmed, she tried to remember Earth, the sound of rain against glass, the smell of grass after a storm, the laughter of her daughter. Those memories were her only warmth in this frozen place. She reached into a hidden seam of her torn uniform. Her fingers brushed a small metal chip, smooth and cold, her daughter's message. She had kept it safe, hidden from the aliens. If they found it, they would destroy it. It was more dangerous than any weapon. She pressed it to her wrist console, shielding it from the cameras. The tiny hologram flickered weakly, and then a familiar voice filled the cell soft. Human, alive. Hi, Mom. If you're seeing this, it means you're far away again. But I know you'll come back. You always do. Lara's eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth to stop from crying out loud. The recording continued, her daughter's voice bright and full of hope. The ship's lights dimmed to red as alarms began to echo through the endless metal corridors. Alara didn't know what had happened, but she could feel it. Tension, movement. Something breaking the usual perfect calm of the Xyrath vessel. For the first time since her capture, she heard shouting, not human voices, but alien ones, sharp and distorted, like static with anger behind it. She pressed her hands against the transparent wall of her cell. What's going on? She whispered. No answer came. The air vibrated with distant tremors. Then the wall shimmered and dissolved into nothing. Varen stood there, his eyes glowing faintly blue. But this time, there was urgency in his movements. You must come with me, he said quickly. Alara blinked in surprise. What? Why? They discovered my interference, he replied. You are marked for termination. Her heart jumped. Termination. As in... Yes, he interrupted. The High Council has decided your existence endangers the logical structure of the collective. They believe your persistence is contagious. Lara took a step forward, shock mixing with disbelief. Contagious, you mean? They're afraid of me? Varen hesitated, then nodded. Of what you represent. Lyra's lips curled into a faint, tired smile. Good, then let's give them something to be afraid of. He looked at her, almost confused. You are not afraid? Oh, I'm terrified, she said, brushing dust off her torn uniform. But fear doesn't mean surrender. For a brief second, they stared at each other, a human and an alien, two enemies bound by something neither could explain. Then Varen extended his hand. We must go now. Alada took his hand without hesitation. They ran through the corridor, their footsteps echoing against the metallic floor. Lights flashed above them, casting shadows that moved like ghosts. As they turned a corner, they saw two Xyrath guards blocking the way. Their weapons glowed white-hot. Varen didn't stop. He moved faster than Alara had ever seen, striking both guards with precise, powerful blows. Sparks burst from their armor as they fell. He turned to her. This way. You're really doing this, she said breathlessly as they ran. You're betraying your own kind. I am correcting them, Varen replied. They have forgotten what life means. They reached a massive hangar, a cathedral of machinery. Rows of alien ships rested in perfect alignment, silver and silent. Energy fields shimmered around them, Varen moved quickly to one of the smaller ships. This vessel is unmonitored. It can carry you beyond their detection range for a short time. What about you? Alara asked. I will open the launch bay, he said simply. Alara grabbed his arm. You can come with me. He looked at her, expression unreadable. I cannot survive outside this vessel's field for long. My body is bound to the collective's network. If I leave, I die. She shook her head firmly. Then I'm not leaving you. He stared at her, silent. Why? Because that's what humans do, she said. We don't leave someone who helped us. Not when it matters. For a moment, he didn't respond. Then, slowly, he nodded. Then we both go. They moved together, working fast. Varen used his access codes to disable the alarms while Alara climbed into the pilot seat. The controls were alien, but instinct guided her hands. The ship hummed to life. As they prepared to launch, a voice thundered through the hangar, the voice of the High Council. Varen of the Zyrith, you have committed treason. Surrender now, and your consciousness will be restored to order. Varan's eyes darkened. Order without freedom is not life. The hangar doors began to close. Energy beams crackled across the air. Alara gritted her teeth. Hold on. She slammed her hand on the ignition pad. The ship roared, shaking the floor. Alarms screamed. The hangar lights exploded as the vessel shot forward. Energy beams struck the hull, sending waves of force through the cabin. Varen held the controls beside her, helping to steady the ship. Shields failing. He shouted, then we fly faster. Alara yelled back. The ship broke through the last energy barrier, bursting into the blackness of space. Behind them, the massive Zyrith flagship shrank into the distance, its bright lights flickering like dying stars. Inside the small cockpit, Alara and Varen breathed hard, the sound of their exhaustion mixing with the hum of the engines. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Alara laughed softly. You know, for a race built on logic, your people sure make a lot of bad decisions. Varen tilted his head. They will not stop. They will come for us. Then they'll have to earn it, she said. He turned to her. Your body is damaged. You are weak. You still don't get it, do you? Weak doesn't mean defeated. Sighed, stars drifted past the window, endless, quiet, beautiful. For the first time in a long time, Alara felt something like freedom. But then, a soft alarm blinked red on the console. The navigation system showed multiple signatures behind them, the Zyrith fleet. They had found them already. Alara looked at Varen. Looks like round 2. He nodded calmly. Then we make it count. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the tiny chip, her daughter's message. She placed it near the control panel. If we don't make it, she said, this goes out into the galaxy. People need to know what happened here. They need to know what we stood for. Varen stared at the glowing chip. You would risk your life to send words? They're not just words, Alara said softly. They're proof that we existed. Proof that even at the edge of extinction, humanity still had fire left. The alien ships drew closer, their weapons charging. The cabin filled with the sound of rising energy. Alara looked at Varen. Ready? He nodded once. Together, she smiled. Together. And with that, she pushed the throttle to maximum. The ship shot forward like a comet, diving straight into the darkness, 2 beings. One human and one alien, defying the logic of an empire behind them. The void came alive with light. The stars blurred into streaks of white as Alara's stolen ship tore through the void. Every control on the panel was flashing red. The engine screamed, the hull shuddered, and sparks flew from the console. Still, she didn't slow down. Varen sat beside her, hands flying across the glowing symbols on the alien interface. They are gaining, he said flatly. Alara glanced at the radar. Dozens of red dots swarmed behind them. The Zyrith fleet. They really don't like it when someone breaks their rules, she muttered. Varen's eyes glowed faintly. The Council does not forgive rebellion. They will destroy this ship to erase evidence of my betrayal, Alara smirked. Then we make sure the evidence gets out first. She tapped the small metal chip, her daughter's message, still glowing softly beside the controls. It looked fragile, but it held everything. Earth's last words, her final transmission. Her truth. Varen watched her, confused. You are not trying to survive. She looked at him, her face calm despite the chaos. Survival isn't just about living. It's about being remembered. Outside, bright beams of energy cut through the darkness. One blast struck the ship's left wing. The impact shook the cabin violently, alarms blaring. Varen struggled to stabilize the vessel, his voice tight. Shields are collapsing. We cannot outrun them. Lara's fingers danced across the console. Then we don't run. He turned to her sharply. You intend to fight? You have no weapons. Not yet, she said, flipping open a panel. Beneath it, a small energy core pulsed with unstable light, the ship's reactor. But this is more powerful than any gun. Varan's eyes widened slightly. That core will detonate with the force of a star. Exactly. He stared at her, realization sinking in. You would destroy yourself to stop them. She met his gaze. Not just to stop them, to show them why humanity matters. You said your people don't understand life. Maybe this will help them remember what it feels like to live. The ship jolted again, metal screaming. The enemy was close now, their ships forming a ring around the fleeing vessel. Blue light gathered in their cannons, ready to strike. Ilara took a deep breath. Varen, you need to leave. He shook his head. If I disconnect from this ship, my body will die. But if I stay, I will die as well. Then you get to choose, she said softly. And that's something your kind never learned how to do. For a moment, the silence between them felt heavier than the stars outside. Then Varen looked at her, really looked at her, and something in him broke free from logic. I choose to stay, he said. Ilara smiled faintly. Then let's give them a show. She rerouted the last of the power into the transmission array. The chip's light grew brighter, glowing like a small blue sun. The ship's speakers came to life. Her voice echoed across the galaxy. This is Commander Ilara Stone of the Terran Fleet, she said, her tone steady and strong. If anyone can hear me, humanity lives. Her words traveled far, carried on frequencies no alien could block. We were beaten, broken, scattered across the stars, but we never stopped fighting. Because being human means standing up, even when the universe says stay down. It means hope, even when hope burns. Behind her, the energy core pulsed faster, brighter. Varen watched her with silent awe. Your words, he said quietly. They make me feel something I cannot name. That's what we do, Ilara whispered. We make you feel. The Xyrath fleet surrounded them completely now. The lead ship opened communication. The voice of the High Council filled the cabin, cold and metallic. Surrender, human. Your existence will end either way. Do not waste your final moment. Ilara closed her eyes. My final moment is already worth more than your entire empire. She pressed the activation sequence. The reactor's hum deepened into a roar. The entire ship shook violently. Varen turned to her. It has begun. She reached out and took his hand. Then we face it together. The light expanded around them, white, pure, endless. And in that final instant, Ilara smiled. Tell them, we were never weak. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but its light filled the darkness for miles. The Xyrath fleet halted as the wave of energy rippled outward, harmless yet brilliant, forming a radiant blue sphere that hung in the void like a new star. Inside that light, something beautiful happened. The data from Ilara's chip, her message, her daughter's voice, her hope, was carried by the explosion. It spread across the galaxy, transmitted through every frequency, touching worlds that had never heard the word human before, and somewhere, deep within the Xyrath's collective network, something awakened. Varen's consciousness, what was left of it, drifted inside their data streams. But it was not alone. Her words echoed there, repeating endlessly, humanity never surrenders. The aliens watched the glowing sphere fade slowly into the dark. Their instruments showed no trace of the ship, no survivors, but for reasons none of them could explain. The High Council ordered a full retreat for the first time in centuries. The Zyrith stopped fighting, and far beyond them, across endless light years, Ilara's final transmission continued its journey, a heartbeat pulsing through the cosmos, reminding anyone who heard it that courage could outshine fear. The light from the explosion lingered in the void for what felt like eternity, a silent, glowing monument where Ilara's ship had vanished. Even after the energy faded, its echo remained in the Zyrith network, pulsing through their machines like a heartbeat that would not die. Across the alien fleet, systems began to glitch. Monitors flickered, communication channels filled with static, and data nodes repeated the same unknown signal: humanity lives. At first, the Zyrith believed it was corruption, a virus perhaps. But the words didn't spread like a virus. They grew. Each repetition carried a tone, a rhythm, almost like music. It was emotion, something their kind had long forgotten. High over the council chamber, vast as a city and cold as stone, the great screen lit up with a face, human, fragile, and fierce. Commander Ilara Stone's message played again and again, reaching even the farthest listening stations. "This is Commander Ilara Stone of the Terran Fleet," her voice said, steady and full of fire. "If you hear this, humanity still lives. We are more than flesh. We are spirit, will, and memory. You can destroy our bodies, but not what we stand for." The council watched in silence. For beings who prided themselves on pure logic, silence was rare, but this was something beyond comprehension. At last, one of the elders spoke, his tone heavy with confusion. "This human. She sacrificed everything for an idea." Another replied coldly, "An inefficient act. There is no logic in destruction for purpose." But somewhere among them, Varen's code still whispered through their systems, tangled with the message. His last recorded words surfaced on every screen. "Order without freedom is not life." Those words hit the council like a storm. For centuries, they had believed emotion was weakness. But now, the faint trace of human defiance had begun to awaken something buried deep in their collective mind. Curiosity, empathy even, guilt. Across the fleet, younger Zyrith units began to question orders. A few even disconnected from the network, choosing silence over obedience. The High Council tried to erase the interference, but the data was no longer contained. Ilara's signal had merged with the stars. Months passed. The galaxy slowly returned to its cold rhythm, but the change had already begun. On a distant planet, far from the Council's reach, a group of rebel Zyrith gathered around a projection of Ilara's final transmission. They watched the flickering image of the human woman who had defied an empire. She died to protect her kind. One said, "No." Another replied softly, "She died to protect what life means." In the background, the projection repeated the last line of her message: "Even in the dark, we shine." The rebels stood in silence. Then, one by one, they removed the neural bands that connected them to the collective. Their lights dimmed, not from death, but from freedom. They would carry her words into new worlds. Years later, long after the Zyrith Empire fractured, travelers from distant systems spoke of a faint signal drifting through the void. It played softly on old frequencies, repeating the same message again and again. "We are human. We are hope." Some said the signal guided lost ships home. Others claimed it appeared only to civilizations on the brink of collapse, as if reminding them that courage was stronger than fear. No one could trace its origin anymore. The stars had swallowed Ilara's ship, her voice, and her story. But legend said that somewhere in the silent reaches of space, a faint blue light still moved, the last spark of humanity, burning eternal. And for the first time in galactic history, the Zyrith began to dream. Dream of stars. Dream of freedom. Dream of what it meant to feel alive. Ilara's name became more than a memory. It became a symbol. The day aliens witnessed the power of the human spirit. And that spirit never faded.